You know, they say marriage is about shared experiences. I just didn't realize that included sharing a resort vacation with my husband's secret family. There I was, Sloane, a woman who could spot a fake designer bag from 50 paces and navigate a Target parking lot blindfolded, celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary in Orlando. Instead, I discovered my husband, Brooks, had booked his mistress, Fallon, and her entire clan in the very same luxury resort. Talk about a family reunion nobody asked for. My initial shock quickly morphed into a strategic master plan. Because if Brooks thought he could turn our anniversary into a 5-star adultery convention, he clearly underestimated a woman who's perfected the art of passive-aggressive PTA meetings. This wasn't just a vacation. It was about to become a live-action exposé, courtesy of a very special group chat. And yes, I had photographic evidence, thanks to Brooks's secret burner phone that was about as secret as a Disney parade down Main Street. Get ready, folks, because the Magic Kingdom was about to witness a different kind of fireworks. You know that moment when you're sipping a lukewarm mimosa at a resort breakfast buffet, trying to ignore your husband's increasingly predictable work call face, and then you spot a woman who looks suspiciously like the Fallon from his burner phone's contact list? Yeah. That was my Tuesday morning, approximately 7:45 a.m., at the Grand Floridian's 1900 Park Fair. I'm Sloane, 42, a freelance interior designer with an eye for detail that apparently extends beyond throw pillows and accent walls. My husband, Brooks, 44, a real estate broker whose integrity was clearly as undervalued as a fixer-upper in a flood zone, was currently pretending to negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal while simultaneously trying to avoid eye contact with a blonde at the omelet station. We were supposed to be celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary, a milestone that, in retrospect, felt less like a triumph and more like a very long, very expensive subscription to a magazine I no longer enjoyed. Our kids, Blake, 14, and Chloe, 12, were currently engaged in a heated debate over who got the last Mickey-shaped waffle, blissfully unaware that their dad was about to star in his own personal episode of Cheaters Resort Edition. We'd driven down from our perfectly manicured suburban home in Winter Garden, Florida, a place where the biggest drama usually involved HOA violations or whose lawn service was better. This trip was supposed to be a reprieve, a chance to reconnect. Instead, it was shaping up to be a masterclass in marital deception, with a side of all-you-can-eat pancakes. I'd first stumbled upon Brooks's burner phone a few weeks ago, hidden in a golf bag he hadn't touched since our last family trip to Topgolf. My intuition, honed over years of deciphering teenage eye rolls and passive-aggressive texts from my mother-in-law, screamed red flag, louder than a siren on I-4. It was a cheap prepaid flip phone, because apparently Brooks thought he was a character in a bad spy movie, not a suburban dad with a penchant for bad decisions. The texts were illuminating. "Can't wait for Orlando, my love," from a contact named Fiona. My internal alarm bells went from a gentle chime to a full-blown fire drill. I quickly snapped photos of the incriminating messages, deleted the evidence of my snooping, and returned the phone, a silent predator in my own home. My initial thought was to confront him, but then I thought, what would Olivia Pope do? Or, more accurately, what would a woman who spent 15 years perfecting the art of a perfectly curated Instagram feed do? I decided to gather more intel. And now, here she was, Fallon. She was 38, with that aggressively cheerful wellness coach vibe that made me want to chug a Diet Coke and chain smoke. She wasn't alone. She had her own brood, a couple of kids who looked like they were auditioning for a Gap Kids commercial, and her parents, Brenda and Gary. Brenda, Fallon's mother, was a woman whose severe bob haircut and sensible cardigan screamed, "Retired elementary school principal who still judges your posture." She was currently engaged in an animated conversation with, wait for it, Brooks's own sister, Paige. Paige! My sister-in-law, 40, a marketing executive who always had to be the first to know everything, and who, I now realized, was probably in on this whole charade. My blood pressure spiked, but my face remained a mask of serene suburban elegance. I was a swan on the surface, a furious duck paddling like hell underneath. "Sloan, darling, you look a little pale," Brooks said, returning to the table, his smile as fake as the designer watch he was wearing. "Long night?" I gave him my sweetest, most saccharine smile. "Oh, Brooks, you know me. Always up for an adventure. And speaking of adventures, isn't it a small world? I just saw Paige chatting with a new friend, I presume?" I gestured vaguely towards Brenda, who was now practically doing a full-body mime to Paige. Brooks's eyes flickered, a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor in his left eyelid. "Oh, yeah. Paige is always making new connections. Networking, you know." He cleared his throat, a sound that usually preceded a transparent lie. "Probably someone from her company." I raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Right, because the Grand Floridian is just teeming with marketing opportunities at 7:45 a.m. Or perhaps it's a wellness retreat?" I emphasized the word, watching for a reaction. Nothing. Brooks was good, I'll give him that. 15 years of marriage meant I knew his tells, but he'd clearly been practicing. My mind, however, was already racing faster than a monorail to Epcot. This wasn't just a fling. This was a full-blown parallel universe vacation. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated gall of the man. My initial plan to simply expose him felt inadequate. This required a theatrical production, a public shaming worthy of a reality TV show. And I, Sloan, was about to become the executive producer. The rest of the morning was a blur of forced smiles and internal monologues that would make a stand-up comedian blush. I took the kids to the pool, all the while keeping a watchful eye on Brooks, who was now conspicuously absent, and Fallon, who was poolside, looking far too comfortable in a designer swimsuit that probably cost more than my first car. I saw her interacting with Paige. A casual arm touch, a shared laugh. It twisted the knife, but also fueled my resolve. This wasn't just about Brooks. It was about the entire ecosystem of deceit. Later that afternoon, while Brooks was supposedly on another important call, probably coordinating his next rendezvous with Fallon, I borrowed his phone again. This time, I went deeper. I found a secret album of photos. Brooks and Fallon. Brooks and Fallon's kids. Brooks and Fallon's parents. They looked like a picture-perfect family. A twisted mirror image of my own. My stomach churned, but my resolve hardened. This was beyond a simple affair. This was a second life, meticulously constructed. I downloaded every single photo, every incriminating text, every detail I could find. My phone was now a digital evidence locker, ready for prime time. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Cinderella Castle in the distance, I sat on our balcony, a glass of Chardonnay in hand, and began my masterpiece. I opened WhatsApp. I created a new group. The title? Orlando Family Fun Trip. Innocent, right? Then, with a devilish grin, I started adding contacts. First, my family. Blake, Chloe, my sister Harper, my brother-in-law Mason, and my parents, Carol and Richard. Then, Brooks's family, Paige, her husband Griffin, and Brooks's parents, Richard and Carol. Yes, same names, different people, because life loves a good cosmic joke. And finally, Fallon's family. Fallon herself, her parents Brenda and Gary, and her two kids, Lily and Sam. I took a deep breath. My fingers hovered over the send button. This wasn't just dropping a bomb. This was launching a nuclear missile into a perfectly curated fake family vacation. The chaos that would ensue would be legendary. Brooks would squirm. Fallon would probably try to play the victim. And both families would have their idyllic Disney dreams shattered. But hey, karma's a witch. And she just got an all-access pass to the group chat. The stage was set. The audience was gathered. And the first act was about to begin. I typed out my opening line, a masterpiece of passive aggression and undeniable truth, ready to hit send the moment the sun rose. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my narrative, one sarcastic text at a time. The countdown to detonation had officially begun. The next morning, the air in our resort suite was thicker than a Florida summer day. Brooks was humming a jaunty tune, oblivious while I, Sloan, was a coiled spring. My phone clutched in my hand like a secret weapon. At precisely 8 a.m., as the first rays of sunlight hit our balcony, I hit send. The message was simple, yet devastating. Good morning, everyone. So thrilled we could all connect for this very special Orlando family trip. I thought it would be a great idea to have one central place for all our fun plans. Brooks, dear, I just wanted to confirm if you'd also invited Fallon and her lovely family to join our 15th anniversary celebration, or if that was just a delightful surprise you had planned for us all. So many questions. The silence that followed was deafening, even with the chirping birds outside. Then my phone started vibrating like a trapped hummingbird. Brooks's face, which had been radiating oblivious cheer, slowly drained of color, going from a healthy tan to the shade of a resort linen napkin. He stared at his phone, then at me, his jaw hanging open. "Sloan, what in the actual hell have you done?" he hissed, his voice barely a whisper. I just smiled, a sweet, innocent smile that belied the inferno raging inside. "Oh, just trying to foster some family togetherness, darling. Isn't that what vacations are for?" Then the texts started flooding in, first from my sister Harper. "OMG, Sloan, what is this? Is this for real?" Followed by a series of shocked emojis. Then from Paige, Brooks's sister. "Sloan, you've gone too far. Delete this immediately." Her usual competitive tone now laced with pure panic. And then, the piece de resistance. A message from Fallon herself. "Sloan, this is a private matter. You have no right." "A private matter," I typed back, my fingers flying. "Fallon, darling, when you book a room 2 doors down from my anniversary suite with my husband and bring your entire family to what you think is his family vacation, it ceases to be private and becomes a full-blown public spectacle. Consider this your official invitation to the main event." I then attached the first photo, Brooks and Fallon, holding hands by the resort pool, looking like a couple straight out of a cheesy Hallmark movie. The group chat exploded. My mother, Carol, a woman who usually only used her phone to play Candy Crush, sent a string of question marks. Brooks's mother, also Carol, but the one who always thought I wasn't good enough for her son, sent a single, furious Sloan in all caps. The sheer audacity of her indignation, as if I was the one who had committed the transgression, was almost comical. Brooks was now pacing our suite like a caged tiger, running his hands through his perfectly coiffed hair. "Sloan, you've ruined everything. My career, my reputation." "Your reputation?" I scoffed, pouring myself another mimosa. "Honey, your reputation was already in the dumpster fire when you decided to juggle 2 families. I'm just providing the lighter fluid and a good vantage point for the fireworks." More photos went up. Brooks and Fallon dining at California Grill, overlooking Magic Kingdom. Brooks and Fallon at Epcot, looking cozy in front of Spaceship Earth. Brooks and Fallon, with her kids, enjoying a character breakfast. Each photo was a punch to the gut, but each also solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about exposing the sheer hypocrisy. Brenda, Fallon's mother, chimed in, her text dripping with self-righteous fury. "This is harassment. My daughter is a respectable woman. You're clearly unhinged, Sloan." I typed back, "Respectable? Brenda, your daughter is currently on a family vacation with my husband, funded by my marriage." I'd say unhinged is a strong word for a woman simply presenting photographic evidence. Perhaps enlightened? The kids, Blake and Chloe, were now wide-eyed, glued to their own phones, watching the drama unfold. Blake, ever the pragmatist, texted me privately, "Mom, is Dad really with another family? Like for real?" "Yes, honey," I replied, my heart aching for them, but knowing they deserved the truth. For real. Chloe, my sensitive one, sent a sad emoji. "But why, Mom?" "That's a question your father will have to answer, sweetie," I replied, steeling myself. This was going to hurt them, but living a lie would hurt them more. The resort, a supposed sanctuary of magic and wonder, now felt like a pressure cooker. I could almost feel the eyes on us as we walked through the lobby. Brooks was attempting to call everyone individually, probably trying to spin some elaborate tale, but the group chat was a runaway train. Paige finally called me, her voice shrill. "Sloan, you have to stop. Brooks is freaking out. My parents are having a meltdown. This is going to destroy everything. Destroy what, Paige? I asked, my voice calm, almost serene. The illusion? The carefully constructed facade of Brooks's perfect life. Because, honey, that ship sailed when he decided to play house with another woman. You knew, didn't you? You were covering for him. A beat of silence. I didn't know the extent of it, she stammered. I just thought it was a fling. He said it was over. Oh, bless your naive heart, Paige, I said, a bitter laugh escaping me. He said it was over? Like he said he was working late, or at a golf tournament? Brooks's word is about as reliable as a weather forecast during hurricane season. I then posted another photo, this one from Brooks's burner phone, a screenshot of a text message from Fallon to Brooks. Can't wait to tell my parents we're finally moving forward with our future together. They love you, Brooks. That text was the equivalent of pouring gasoline on the fire. The group chat went from a heated debate to a full-blown inferno. Brenda, Fallon's mother, sent a message. Fallon, what is the meaning of this? You told us he was separated. You told us he was going to leave her. Fallon's reply was immediate and desperate. Mom, no, it's not like that. Sloan is twisting things. Twisting things? I typed, a triumphant smirk on my face. I'm merely presenting the unedited director's cut, Fallon. No filter needed when the truth is this juicy. Brooks, now looking utterly defeated, slumped onto the sofa. Sloan, please. What do you want? Just stop this. What do I want, Brooks? I asked, looking him dead in the eye. I want the truth. I want justice. And I want everyone to see you for who you really are. You wanted a public life? Congratulations, darling. You just got a primetime slot. The final message I posted in part 2 was a screenshot of Brooks's bank statement, showing a significant transfer to an account under Fallon's name, labeled Future Home Fund. The silence in the group chat was palpable, even through the digital ether. This wasn't just a romantic indiscretion. This was a financial entanglement, a clear sign of intent. And that, in the suburban landscape of Winter Garden, was a whole new level of betrayal. The stage was set for a confrontation that would make the wildest Disney villain look like a friendly character actor. The Future Home Fund screenshot hit the group chat like a Category 5 hurricane hitting a mobile home park. The immediate aftermath was a digital wasteland of stunned silence, followed by a torrent of furious texts from both sides of the family. My parents, bless their hearts, were horrified but supportive, while Brooks's parents were in full damage control mode, trying to deflect and deny. But the evidence was irrefutable. A significant sum transferred from our joint account to Fallon's. This wasn't just a fling. This was a carefully orchestrated plan to build a new life, brick by fraudulent brick. Brooks, pale and sweating, finally looked at me with something beyond anger. It was fear. Sloan, you can't put that out there. That's confidential. You'll ruin me. Confidential? I retorted, a chilling calm in my voice. Honey, you emptied our joint savings for your little love nest. That's not confidential. That's marital asset misappropriation. And in Florida, that's a big no-no. You know, for a real estate broker, you have a surprisingly poor understanding of legal boundaries. But the real twist, the one that truly changed the game, came from an unexpected source. As the group chat was still reeling, a private message popped up on my phone. It was from Gary, Fallon's father. Sloan, the message read, I need to talk to you. Alone. Meet me at the Grand Floridian Cafe in 15 minutes. Don't tell Fallon or Brenda. My internal alarm bells, which had been ringing incessantly, suddenly shifted to a different tune. This wasn't a trap. It felt like a desperate plea. Gary, a man who usually blended into the wallpaper, was reaching out. This was a crack in Fallon's carefully constructed facade. I looked at Brooks, still moping on the couch. I'm going to get some coffee, I announced, grabbing my purse. Don't burn the place down while I'm gone. At the cafe, Gary was already seated, looking like a man who'd just seen his entire life flash before his eyes, and it wasn't a pretty picture. He was a quiet, unassuming man, a retired accountant who probably thought the biggest scandal he'd ever face was an audit. Sloan, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I saw the texts, the photos, the Future Home Fund. Fallon told us Brooks was separated. She said you two were getting a divorce, and he was just waiting for the papers to be finalized. She said he was moving in with us, and they were looking for a house together. My jaw tightened. The layers of deception were thicker than a Disney World crowd on Christmas. She lied to you, Gary. Brooks and I were very much married. We were here for our anniversary. He nodded, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. I know. And I'm so sorry, Sloane. I truly am. But there's something else. Something Fallon has been doing. Something about Brooks's investments. My ears perked up. Investments? Gary leaned in, his voice dropping even lower. Fallon convinced Brooks to invest a significant amount of money, I'm talking hundreds of thousands, into a wellness startup she was launching. She said it was a sure thing, a pre-IPO opportunity. She even got Brenda to put some of her retirement savings in it. But I looked at the financials she showed me, and they were fishy. Very fishy. I tried to warn them, but Fallon just brushed me off, said I didn't understand modern business models. She said Brooks was bringing in more investors too. This was it. The crucial discovery. This wasn't just about a cheating husband. It was about financial fraud, potentially involving multiple victims. Brooks wasn't just a philanderer, he was a mark. And Fallon wasn't just a mistress. She was a con artist. The game had just changed from a domestic drama to a potential criminal investigation. My mind, which had been focused on public humiliation, now shifted to something far more satisfying. Legal repercussions. Gary, I said, my voice firm, do you have any of those documents? Any proof of these investments? The names of other investors? He nodded, pulling a crumpled envelope from his jacket pocket. I made copies. I knew something wasn't right. I tried to tell Brenda, but she's always believed Fallon's vision. She's so proud of her entrepreneurial spirit. He sighed, a heavy, defeated sound. I just wanted to protect my family. And now I don't know what to do. You came to the right person, Gary, I said, a new resolve hardening my gaze. You just helped me turn a messy divorce into a federal case. I spent the next few hours meticulously going through Gary's documents, cross-referencing names, dates, and figures. The wellness startup called Zenith Bloom was a shell company, a house of cards built on Brooks's and Brenda's money, and likely the money of other unsuspecting investors Brooks had roped in. Fallon had been using Brooks not just for romance, but for his network and his wallet. She was playing a much bigger, much dirtier game. My plan for public humiliation now had a powerful, legal backbone. This wasn't just about exposing Brooks's infidelity. It was about exposing Fallon's fraud and ensuring Brooks faced consequences far beyond a bruised ego. I contacted my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Reed, back in Winter Garden. I sent her all the evidence, explaining the situation with a detached calm that surprised even myself. Sloane, Evelyn said, her voice sharp over the phone. This is huge. If Fallon is running a Ponzi scheme, or even just a sophisticated scam, Brooks could be implicated as an accomplice, even if he was just a patsy. We need to act fast. I have a plan, Evelyn, I said, a wicked glint in my eye. And it involves a very public, very humiliating confrontation, followed by a very quiet, very efficient legal takedown. I want to make sure everyone at this resort, and everyone in our social circle, knows exactly what kind of man Brooks is, and what kind of woman Fallon is. And then, I want to make sure they both face the music, legally and financially. My preparation was meticulous. I drafted a new message for the group chat, but I wouldn't send it yet. This one would be the final nail in the coffin, combining the personal betrayal with the financial fraud. I also started making discreet inquiries around the resort, asking about Fallon and Brooks, subtly dropping hints about their unique family situation. The gossip mill at a luxury resort was faster than any social media algorithm. As the day drew to a close, I felt a surge of power. They had underestimated me. They thought I was just a suburban mom, easily dismissed. But they had awakened a force more formidable than any Disney villain. The group chat was still buzzing with outrage and confusion, but I knew the best was yet to come. I had the evidence, I had a lawyer, and I had a plan. The final act of this twisted family drama was about to unfold, and it would be a masterpiece of poetic justice. I ended part 3 with a private text to Evelyn. Get ready. Tomorrow, we bring down the house. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a delicious tension building towards the grand finale. The next morning dawned with a sense of impending doom for Brooks and Fallon, and a thrilling anticipation for me. I had spent the night meticulously crafting my final message, a symphony of facts, sarcasm, and undeniable proof. My children, Blake and Chloe, were still processing the initial shock, but had rallied around me with a fierce loyalty. My sister, Harper, was a constant source of moral support, her texts a mix of outrage and dark humor. Brooks, on the other hand, looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight, his face a roadmap of regret and fear. At 9 a.m. sharp, as families gathered for breakfast and the resort buzzed with morning activity, I dropped the final bomb in the Orlando Family Fun Trip group chat. Good morning, everyone. I hope you've all had a chance to digest the previous revelations. Now, for the grand finale. It appears Brooks wasn't just planning a future with Fallon. He was also funding her wellness startup, Zenith Bloom, with a significant portion of our marital assets. And, according to Fallon's own father, Gary, this startup looks suspiciously like a fraudulent scheme, potentially involving other unsuspecting investors. Attached, you'll find copies of the investment documents, bank transfers, and a detailed timeline of how Brooks was systematically siphoning funds. So, Brooks, dear, it seems you weren't just cheating on me. You were also being played for a fool and potentially committing financial fraud in the process. Fallon, your wellness journey seems to be less about inner peace and more about illicit gains. Enjoy your family vacation, everyone. My lawyer, Evelyn Reed, will be in touch shortly. Consider this your official notice. I then attached all the documents Gary had given me, along with the bank statements and a carefully compiled timeline that showed the systematic draining of our accounts. The silence in the group chat was instantaneous and absolute. It was the kind of silence that precedes a massive explosion. And then, the explosion came. Not just in the chat, but in real life. Brooks's phone rang, then Fallon's, then Brenda's. My phone, however, remained serenely quiet. I watched Brooks, who was now frantically trying to call Evelyn, then his own lawyer. His face was a mask of pure terror. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the lobby. Fallon, Brenda, and Gary were storming towards our table, their faces contorted with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Fallon, looking less like a wellness guru and more like a cornered rat, pointed a trembling finger at me. "You witch! You absolute monster! You're making this all up!" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the elegant lobby. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, maintaining eye contact. Am I, Fallon? Or am I just presenting the facts? Your own father, Gary, seems to think otherwise. Perhaps you should ask him about the Zenith Bloom financials he so helpfully provided. Brenda, her face a mottled red, turned on Gary. "Gary, what have you done? How could you betray your own daughter?" Gary, usually so meek, stood his ground. "Brenda, she's been lying to us, to everyone. This startup is a scam. She's taking people's money." The scene was a spectacle. Resort guests, initially trying to discreetly peek over their newspapers, were now openly staring, their phones discreetly recording. Brooks, seeing his entire life unravel in public, tried to intervene. "Fallon, Brenda, please. Let's discuss this privately." "Privately?" I scoffed, standing up, my voice clear and firm. "Brooks, privacy left the building when you decided to book your mistress and her family in the same resort as your wife and children for your anniversary. This is a public forum now, and the public deserves to know the truth." I then pulled out my phone and played a voice recording I had discreetly made of Fallon on a previous day, bragging to Paige about how easy it was to get Brooks to invest, and how she was setting up her future with his money. Paige, who was also now in the lobby, looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. The sound of Fallon's own voice, gleefully admitting her scheme, was the final, devastating blow. Her face crumpled and she started to cry, not tears of remorse, but tears of pure, unadulterated self-pity. Brenda, realizing the depth of her daughter's deception, looked utterly shattered. Suddenly, two men in crisp suits approached. "Ms. Fallon?" one of them asked, displaying a badge. "We're from the Florida Department of Financial Services. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding a company called Zenith Bloom." Fallon's jaw dropped. Brooks gasped. The entire lobby went silent. I just smiled. Evelyn, my lawyer, worked fast. She had already alerted the authorities with the evidence I'd provided. This wasn't just public humiliation. This was a legal reckoning. The next few hours were a blur of official statements, hushed conversations, and the slow, painful dismantling of Brooks's and Fallon's lives. Fallon was escorted away for questioning, her family vacation ending in a police interrogation room. Brenda and Gary, heartbroken and humiliated, packed their bags. Their dreams of Fallon's successful startup shattered. Brooks, meanwhile, was left to face the wrath of his own family. His parents, Richard and Carol, were beyond furious. Less about my feelings and more about the stain on their family name. Paige, realizing the extent of her brother's deception and her own unwitting complicity, was in shock. "Sloan," Brooks pleaded, his voice hoarse. "Please, don't press charges. I'll give you everything. Just don't ruin me completely." I looked at him, a man I had spent 15 years building a life with, now reduced to a pathetic shell. "Brooks," I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "you ruined yourself. I just held up a mirror. And as for everything, my lawyer will be in touch. I want the house, full custody, and every penny you tried to hide. And yes, I'm pressing charges. Not just for me, but for every other person Fallon scammed, and for the example you set for our children." The final twist came later that day. As Brooks was trying to salvage what little dignity he had left, a representative from the resort approached him. "Mr. Brooks, we've received numerous complaints regarding the disturbance this morning. We're afraid we'll have to ask you to check out immediately. Your reservation has been canceled." His face was priceless. He was being kicked out of the very resort where he'd planned his duplicitous anniversary. Poetic justice, indeed. As he gathered his things, looking utterly defeated, Blake and Chloe came up to me. "Mom," Blake said, a new respect in his eyes. "That was intense." "Yeah," Chloe added, "but you were really brave." I hugged them tightly. Sometimes, darlings, the truth is the bravest thing you can say. And sometimes, karma just needs a little push. The new normal began immediately. Brooks was gone, his bags packed by a resort bellhop, his grand plan in tatters. Fallon was facing serious legal trouble. My family, though shocked, was united. And I, Sloan, was standing tall, having orchestrated a takedown that was both epic and entirely justified. The resort, once a symbol of his betrayal, was now the site of my triumph. The magic, it seemed, was back, but this time, it was on my terms. The aftermath of the great Orlando unveiling was, predictably, a glorious dumpster fire for Brooks and Fallon, and a surprisingly liberating experience for me. The resort, which had initially been the stage for my marital demise, quickly became the backdrop for my phoenix-like rise from the ashes. Brooks was, as promised, swiftly removed from the premises. His departure as ignominious as his arrival had been audacious. Fallon, last I heard, was still navigating the labyrinthine legal system, her Zenith Bloom wellness empire having imploded faster than a cheap inflatable pool toy. Turns out, karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes she brings a warrant. Life, in its wonderfully ironic way, had a knack for balancing the scales. Brooks's real estate business, once thriving on his carefully cultivated image, took a nosedive faster than a tourist on Space Mountain. Who wants to buy a house from a man who can't even keep his own in order, let alone his marital assets? His reputation in Winter Garden, a town where gossip travels faster than an express train to Hogwarts, was in tatters. He tried to spin it, of course, claiming I was unstable and vindictive, but the evidence, meticulously curated and widely disseminated, spoke for itself. My lawyer, Evelyn, a woman who could probably make a stone confess, ensured that the divorce proceedings were swift, decisive, and overwhelmingly in my favor. I got the house, the kids, and a substantial chunk of his remaining assets. It wasn't about the money, not entirely, but it certainly helped fund my new, unburdened life. Fallon's family, particularly Brenda, was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered illusions. Gary, her father, became an unlikely ally, testifying against his own daughter, a testament to the power of truth, or perhaps just the sheer horror of realizing your child is a con artist. I even heard Brenda started attending a support group for parents of adult children who've made questionable life choices. I almost felt a pang of sympathy, then remembered the Future Home Fund, and promptly ordered another latte. My own family, after the initial shock, rallied around me with a fierce loyalty that warmed my cynical heart. Harper, my sister, became my chief confidant and co-conspirator in all things post-divorce. My parents, once concerned with appearances, now just wanted to see me happy. And the kids, Blake and Chloe, handled it with a maturity that both surprised and humbled me. They saw the truth, they saw their father's flaws, and they saw their mother stand up for herself. That, I realized, was the most important lesson of all. I went back to my interior design business with a renewed vigor. My eye for detail, once used to spot a cheating husband, was now fully focused on creating beautiful, authentic spaces. I even started a new blog, Sloane's Sanctuary, Designing a Life After Disaster, where I shared my journey with a healthy dose of sarcasm and practical advice. It turns out, a good scandal can be great for business, especially when you turn it into a cautionary tale with a happy ending. Looking back, the whole experience was a masterclass in human folly and resilience. I learned that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people closest to you, and sometimes the most unexpected allies emerge from the wreckage. I learned that my intuition was a superpower, and that a woman scorned, armed with a burner phone and a WhatsApp group, is a force to be reckoned with. I never played the victim, I played the strategist. I didn't just survive, I thrived, with a sharper wit and a clearer vision of what I deserved. So what's the takeaway from this Orlando adventure? Don't trust a man who claims to be working late when he's actually building a second life. Always check the golf bag. And if karma decides to check into the same resort as you, make sure you've got the reservation for the main event. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served publicly, with a side of legal documents and a whole lot of sarcastic commentary. My life became a reality show I never auditioned for, but I ended up with the executive producer credit and a much better script. And that, my friends, is what I call a truly magical ending.